Hi, and welcome back to Plugged In, the OB Gaming series where we glean insights from industry leaders and innovators. I'm Kathryn Spetch. I sit in our global gaming practice here at Odgers Exec Search, and today I am super excited to be joined by Rez Studios Chief Operating Officer, Vero Lallier. Quick intro to Vero, because she's much more interesting than I am, so we'll get on with it. But her gaming career started just over 20 years ago with Ubisoft. Since then, she's brought her in-depth marketing and publishing expertise to NCSoft, Warner Brother Games, Rockstar, and now Rez, where she set up the European office from scratch. And today, I'm stealing some of her time to get her views on two things. And the first being, what is the biggest challenge facing the industry, in your opinion, Vero?
Hey, hi, Kathryn. Thank you for the intro.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of challenges, obviously, in our industry. But for me, this year, it's really about the post-pandemic world and trying to, figure out how to live and work and, create great game in this context. So there are three big acts of thinking for me with the post-pandemic world. There is first around the work, second around the economy, and finally around the player pattern. So around the work, I think we all adapted very well, a couple of years ago when we had to go at home. So it was on us, we had to work remotely and, and figure out how to continue to create those great games and support our live communities in a remote context. And that was fine, it's worked fairly well at the time, but now that we back to a bit more normality with the vaccine, etc. So we're starting to go back to the office, and I think finding the right balance between remote and hybrid or fully back to the office has been quite challenging. I mean, for us it's a big challenge to overcome developing a new game using a very iterative approach in a remote world across different time zones as well, because we have,
of course,
member of staff here in the UK, but we also have member of staff in America, across different states as well, so different time zone over there as well. And it actually create some difficulty to be as, effective and as iterative as you would expect us to be prior the pandemic, where we were all together working in one location, creating those games. So I think that's something we're currently looking at, and how to do, to support the best of both worlds. Things depend on what job you're into. You can definitely do your work with less in-person, contact, but I think there are in a lot of occasions when you are in a creative job where you need to really work together, bounce idea off one of each other and stuff like that. And I think even using the great tools we all have, like Discord, Slack, or whatever, it's still not the same. And I think it's finding the right balance has been one of the challenge as well. I think for us is trying to make sure we are flexible enough and supporting our staff and our talent while not being together all the time, and trying to make sure they feel engaged, they feel part of the team. I think as well, this has been a challenge, being remote all the time, and more especially what I think is like the people who join us during the pandemic, I think, who just live in the remote world of working for our staff or our company, is they don't have the same, attachment to the rest of the group, obviously, because you haven't had those time where you're all in the office together and like, I don't know, someone drop his food or drop his coffee and everybody's at a laugh, or those situations,
you miss those small parts. Absolutely.
Those little situations that create some fun thing. Or also one of the good thing with our UK based team always been established around having a multicultural team, similar to what you have in Brighton. It's a very vibrant multicultural city. So we had people from everywhere from the world, like, from Argentina to Germany, France, UK, everywhere. We had everybody in the same office, and that was great because none of us really had, our first circle of friends here. So our first circle of friends became our co-workers.
Team, yeah.
Yeah, and then we were like going out all the time together and stuff. And so since the pandemic happened, this has obviously scaled down with the social distancing and stuff like that. So that's been something, quite different, and it's a new challenge that we need to consider and redefine the way we're doing things. Also, on the last point I have on around the post-pandemic work is also around the fact that we have less in-person, event. Like, for instance, E3 didn't happen this year. Gamescom will happen in the summer, but with a much smaller and reduced live audience. And I think that has made us, as game developer and game publisher, rethink how we are launching our games. We, traditionally, you would have like a lot of buzz around E3, and that has happened again this year. Everybody had like, you had different online event and different media set up their own thing, and we actually use that at Rez Studio, because we actually announced our new game, the one we're making in Brighton, Divine Knockout, through OTK Media on their online June show, and that was the only thing we did. But in the past, we would have made more like a mixture with live event and media and different media, and that's has actually made us rethink the way we are working and the way we are launching game, and we need to relearn on how to optimize these announcements in order to reach the right audience. So I think that's on the post-pandemic work my three major thing.
The event thing is interesting, because I mean, like you say, Gamescom's happening, people are getting ready to go to develop next month, and you can tell there's a buzz about it, because for all it is a huge industry, and we all know how many billions of dollars it's worth, it's quite a small industry and full of some really great people that are really well connected. And I think it feels as though people have been a little bit more cut off than normal across different studios, because despite the competitive nature, there is a lot of collaboration within the industry. And I think, that's been missing as well without the in-person events.
Definitely. It's a huge gap. And, the year we didn't have GDC was very hard as well for us, because we doing so much of those, contact and relationship and, touch on during those events as well with our peers in the industry. And I think that has been, very challenging, but we'll be at Develop. So we're planning to be there for sure, and Gamescom as well. But it's, we really want to spend time, with our friends in the industry and participate. Really, it's very important. I'm really excited with Develop in Brighton.
You don't have to go far either, Vero.
No, exactly. It's like a 10 minutes walk. Perfect. I like that. On the economic side, I think the pandemic as well has been really changing a lot of things. And in regard to compensation, it will be interesting for us to really, the few years ahead of us, because basically, as the pending ascent competition in the game industry in a pretty wide ride, more especially in North America, where you add like some adjustment with West Coast, East Coast salaries, and it's been actually very really crazy, and it seems to normalize a bit more now that we're going through a lot of recession, more especially around the tech industry. So but we are very eager to keep an eye on the market and the trends to make sure we ensure we are paying industry standard for our staff, and with inflation coming everywhere, it's very difficult to know where it's going to land. So that's, I think, for me, a big challenge. And it's we don't have answers yet, but I think for us, it's very key to keep an eye on that, on the economy, and making sure we are in a good spot with how we're supporting our staff. So that's an aspect in the economy that I think we notice with the post-pandemic. And the other aspect is, to see, it's very interesting for us to see how this will affect the current M&A craze. I mean, it's been very interesting, months, and the target companies evaluation of criteria. So, but yeah, its evaluation of acquiring companies is going up and down, and it's kind of crazy to see and to try to anticipate where this is going to land, because it's definitely a challenge.
And I don't think anybody has the answers, like you said. I mean, going back to kind of remuneration challenges, they've been there for the last 18 months, really, because I mean, they always exist in some way, but the pandemic really shone a light on them. And as you said, things came to light about the real differences from East Coast to West Coast, if we're thinking about the US, and then people within the UK being approached for remote West Coast jobs. And there's been a lot of fluctuation and a lot of increases in salaries. But for businesses, it's quite difficult to know how best to react at this point, because it's working out whether that is for a small snapshot of time or whether actually that will continue. And I think now overlay that with the economic uncertainty and the impending recession, let's be honest, it will be even trickier, unfortunately.
The tech industry is suffering at the moment. So in the US, more especially, I mean, and here as well. So I think it's interesting to see where we're gonna land. So that's a challenge for me on the economy side of thing, and we have to keep an eye on that. Finally, on the post-pandemic world, something I can see as well that has really changed is the player pattern, and trying to figure out, what our players are interested into. I think, are we sure they are interested in the same type of games? How has the 2 years, spent inside has affected them as well? Their demands, their interests. We all had this big, a bump, during the pandemic. Everyone at home. It's definitely as forced some of, more especially when the school were not running, some of the teen were like kind of happy to say, no school, no work, I'm gonna play games. So I think we all had this pandemic effect where people were spending anyway most of their free time at home, so playing game, consuming entertainment, streaming entertainment, and things like that, because when you're stuck at home, you're stuck at home. So I think that's has definitely affected some of the way players were consuming. But now that there is more activities and outdoor activities open to them, it's very interesting for us to keep an eye on, okay, what type of content they want now, and the size, the length, how much they want to be involved into gaming, how many hours, and etc., and what type of game they are into, because I think that has affected, the 2 years pandemic has affected a lot, what people are after.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I was having a conversation the other day with somebody about, I can't remember what research came out, but it was all to do with kind of why different generations play games and kind of what they cite as being the biggest reason. And across all generations, it comes out as an escape from reality, which, we can probably all have guessed. But reality has changed, or it certainly did for 2 years, and then we're starting to come out of that. So to your point about what types of games people want, do they still want the same type of thing that helps them escape reality because of how different reality looks? It's tricky.
No, yeah, exactly. And I think it's down to us to spend some time to understand, more what players are after, and create great games, and come up with new concept and, new content that will keep exhilarating them and make them like, wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. And engage with them. So, but it's hard to see where it's going to settle, because we all had a big, bump and then a dip, and it's hard to see when and where it's going to settle, because it's still up and down, and every other day more variants are coming, and and it continue to bring a lot of uncertainties, and people, I think, consume differently, different way than they used to do before. I mean, just if I look at my own household, we were way more proactive to book vacation abroad, way more proactive to plan ahead. It was like, okay, it's open, let's plan. Let's not wait, because sure, there's gonna be another variant, another thing, but at least we have that, this little, thing pin
something to look forward to in the distance.
Exactly. And we'll see. Maybe we can go, maybe we can't, but at least we will try. We will try, to go, that's for sure. So it's hard to see where how this will affect us and our industry on the long term. So these are, I think, for me, the post-pandemic world is really the biggest, my biggest challenge at the moment, because on those three acts, work, economy, and player pattern, there is a lot of unknown, and a lot of things for us to learn in next months. So it's interesting, but it's definitely a challenge.
Brilliant. Thank you.